So let's recite together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the sublime, the victorious, the totally self-enlightened one. Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are going to talk about the Four Noble Truths. We have actually come to the last section on the contemplation of the Dhamma. So we are going to talk about the Ariya Sacca. So let's go directly to the sutta. So it starts like all the other sections. Punacha param bhikkhave bhikkhu dhammesu dhammanupasi viharati. Chatusu Ariya Satchesu. So Chatusu Ariya Satchesu here, the Four Noble Truths. And again, bhikkhus, a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the Dhamma in the Dhammas, in the Four Noble Truths. And how? Because thus a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the Dhamma in the Dhammas, in the Four Noble Truths. So let's first take a look at the word Ariya Sacca, the Four Noble Truths. Now, Noble Truth is the English translation of the Pali term Ariya Sacca. Ariya means noble or noble person, those who have got enlightened, at least the first stage. So all the beings and the first stage, second stage, third stage, and fourth stage of enlightenment, they are called noble being, Ariya, an Ariya person. And Sacca means truth. And so there are four of these truths. So that's why they are called the Four Noble Truths. Now, these Four Noble Truths were neither created nor invented by the Buddha. They were just discovered by him. They are always there. They have always been here. But it was hidden under the cover of ignorance. When there is no Buddha in the world, the Noble Truths are forgotten. So with the passing away of the last Buddha, the Kassapa Buddha, and his immediate disciples, the teaching gradually disappeared, and the Four Noble Truths also become hidden again. So after a long period of time, our Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, appeared, and he rediscovered these Four Noble Truths and revealed them again to the world. The Buddha realized that these Four Noble Truths while he was sitting under the Bodhi tree practicing Vipassana meditation. And after he became the Buddha and rediscovered these Four Noble Truths, he then taught them again and again during the 45 years before he attained Parinibbana. So these Four Noble Truths is a very, very important teaching. We may even say that this is the core of the Buddha's teaching. And now, why are they called the Noble Truths? In the commentary, it is explained that they are called the Noble Truths because, first, because they are penetrated and understood by the Noble Ones, meaning those who got enlightened, they have penetrated and understood about these Four Noble Truths. That's why they are called the Noble Truths, because they are understood by the Noble Ones. And the second is because they are truth that are taught by the noblest of the nobles. That means the Buddha. Among the noble person, the Buddha is the highest, right? So it is taught by the Buddha. So therefore, these truths are called the Noble Truths. And then another reason they are called the Noble Truths is because the realization of these truths will lead to the state of a noble one. That means anyone who realizes truly with their own wisdom, these Four Noble Truths will become a noble person. And then the fourth reason is that they are called Noble Truths because these truths, they are real, unalterable, undeceptive truths about existence. So therefore, they are called the Noble Truths because of this fourth reason. So what are these Four Noble Truths, the Ariya Sacca? So there are four. The first one is called Dukkha Ariya Sacca, the Noble Truth of suffering. And then we have Dukkha Samudaya Ariya Sacca, the Noble Truth of the cause of suffering. And then the third one, Dukkha Nirodha Ariya Sacca, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. And the last one, Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada Ariya Sacca, the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. In the teachings of the Buddha, as you can see, truth does not necessarily mean something that is very high, lofty, or wholesome state. Whether they are wholesome or whether they are unwholesome, high or low, if they are true, and as they are described, then they are called truths here. Actually, in these Four Noble Truths, everything is included. All the ultimate reality is included in these Four Noble Truths. So later we will see what exactly is the first Noble Truth, what exactly is the second, third, and fourth, and then we will understand. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, Dukkha Ariya Sacca, the noble truth of suffering. That's the first one. Now, dukkha here, the word dukkha, we usually translate it as suffering, no? Here, suffering. But actually, it has a deeper meaning. Later on, we will see. Now, let's just take a look at the Pali word itself. Du here, it means veil, and ka means empty. So, anything that is disgusting and empty, anything that is impermanent, without happiness, anything that is without substance is called dukkha. So anything that is impermanent, so basically everything, no? So later on, we will go into the different types of dukkhas, and then we will understand in a deeper way. So here, the first noble truth is the noble truth of dukkha. Well, if we use the word suffering, then we have a limited idea of the word dukkha, because dukkha, it means so much more, so much wider than the English term suffering can cover. So let's just say dukkha, right? Okay, so let's take a look at the characteristic of the first noble truth. This characteristic is affliction. Dukkha makes us miserable. It afflicts us, and its function is to burn. And it is manifested as an occurrence or as coming into being. So the arising of something, becoming something, together with this becoming, dukkha comes together. So it is manifested in that way. Okay, we'll first take a look at the Four Noble Truths briefly, and then we will go into each one of them with more details. Okay, so then we will go to the second one now. Dukkha Samudaya Ariya Sacca, the second noble truth, is the noble truth of the cause of suffering, which actually is craving. Because of craving, there is dukkha. So let's see this word samudaya. Samudaya here is important. Now, aya here, it means cause. Udaya means arising. And sam means combined with or together with what? Together with other conditions. So the cause of dukkha is craving. Now, craving arises together with ignorance, with clinging, with other factors. So supported by these other factors and supported by these causes, dukkha is originated. Therefore, it is called samudaya, the origin of dukkha. So dukkha samudaya, the origin of dukkha, is the second noble truth, which refers to, in ultimate reality, craving. In terms of cetasika, lobha cetasika. So let's take a look at the characteristic, function, and manifestation. Now, the characteristic is originating, and then its function is to prevent interruption. That means it continues to cause indefinite origination. It does not allow any interruption, but always continuing to generate and to continue to produce, right? And it is manifested as an impediment. So that's the characteristic, function, and manifestation of the second noble truth, which is craving here. And then the third noble truth is dukkha nirodha ariya sacca. That means the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. And what is the cessation of suffering? And that in ultimate reality is actually nibbana. So let's take a look at this word nirodha. The prefix ni means not or absent. Roda means a prison. So here, Nirodha, it actually means that literally that there is no prison of dukkha or of the round of rebirths. In Nibbana, since it is free from all kinds of rebirth, so there is no more prison of samsara. Now, Nibbana is called dukkha nirodha, the cessation of suffering, because it is a condition for the cessation of suffering to happen. Now, when a person gets enlightened, path consciousness arise in the mind of the person, or when they truly understand the Four Noble Truths, that what we're talking about here, or understand about Nama and Rupa, understand the universal characteristics, which is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. When all these wisdom are completed, then this path consciousness will arise in the mind of the person, and this path consciousness eradicate the suffering. And this path consciousness takes Nibbana as object. So therefore, Nibbana is the object conditioned for cessation of suffering. And here, cessation of suffering meaning that there is no more defilements. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at the characteristic of Nibbana. It is peacefulness, and peacefulness here meaning freedom from mental defilements. So no greed, no hatred, no delusion, and any kind of defilements, free from that. And then its function is neither to die nor to fade away. And its manifestation is signless. It is called signless because we cannot describe Nibbana either in terms of form or shape and time or things like that, because Nibbana has no attributes. It is not conditioned by anything. It is the only unconditioned, because everything in this world, the five aggregates, everything is conditioned. Everything is caused by some other causes and conditions, no? But Nibbana is unconditioned. It is not conditioned by anything. So therefore, it is called signless here. Okay, so that's the third noble truth. And then we have the last one, which is dukkha nirodha gamini patipada Ariya Sacca, the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, which actually refers to the Noble Eightfold Path. So let's take a look at the Pali word here. Patipada means path or way or practice. And Gamini means leads to what? Leads to the cessation of suffering. So here, the Noble Eightfold Path is the way or the practice or the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. So whoever wants to arrive to the cessation of suffering must practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so here, very briefly, we have seen the meaning of it, and later we will go into detail again of the Noble Eightfold Path. Let's just go to the characteristic now. It is a means or a way to escape. That's the characteristic of the Fourth Noble Truth. And then its function is to abandon defilement, and it is manifested as the release from the round of rebirth. Now, actually, the Noble Eightfold Path, it has 8 factors, right? So it is a general characteristic of the Noble Eightfold Path and not the characteristic of each one of them. Very quickly, we have just gone through the Four Noble Truths, so we know now what they are. And so let's take a look at the sutta. So with regard to this Four Noble Truths, the Buddha, he continues, Ida bhikkhave bhikkhu, idam dukkhanti yatha bhuttam bhajanati. Ayam dukkha samudayoti yatha bhuttam bhajanati. Ayam dukkha nirodhati yatha bhuttam bhajanati. Ayam dukkha nirodha gamini patipadati yatha bhuttam bhajanati. Here, bhikkhus, a bhikkhu knows according to reality. This is suffering. This is dukkha. He knows according to reality. This is the origin of dukkha. He knows according to reality. This is the cessation of dukkha. And he knows according to reality. This is the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. And here, the important word here is yatha bhuttam bhajanati, right? No, he knows according to reality. So he knows according to reality, it describes how meditators know or realize the Four Noble Truths. Knowing according to reality that this is suffering, this is dukkha. What is dukkha? So birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, etc., etc. And this is dukkha. So according to reality, what is dukkha? And then according to reality, the origin of suffering, what is it? That's craving. Craving is the origin of suffering. So we know according to reality. And then what is the cessation of suffering? That is nibbana. We know yatha bhutam, as it is, no, as it is, according to reality. And also the Noble Eightfold Path, or the 8 factors. Then the Buddha further explained about the first noble truth. So in the very beginning, it's like an introduction about the Four Noble Truths. What are they? And then the Buddha goes into details one by one, explaining about what it actually is. What does that mean, right? Katamencha bhikkhave dukkham ariya satcham. And what, because, is the noble truth of suffering? What is it? Jati pi dukkha. Birth is suffering. Jara pi dukkha. Aging is suffering. Maranam pi dukkha. Death is suffering. Sokha parideva dukkha domana supasaya pi dukkha. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are dukkha. Apiyehi sampayogo pi dukkho. Association with the dislike is suffering. Piyehi vipayogo dukkho. Separation from the like or the beloved is suffering. Yampicham na lavati tampi dukkham. Not to get what one wishes is dukkha. Samkitena anshupadana kanda dukkha. The 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. So now the Buddha is detailing what does he mean by suffering. This explanation can also be found in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which is the first sermon that the Buddha delivered after his enlightenment, the discourse of the turning of the wheel. In the very beginning, it says, birth is suffering. Why? Why is birth suffering? Because it is the basis or ground for subsequent suffering that we experience during our entire life. Birth itself can be painful for the mother and for the child already. It is already suffering, but because we are born, then we are subject to other kinds of suffering, such as aging. Aging is also suffering. Aging means maturing, getting old, and decaying. At every hour, every minute, every second, all beings and things, even things, are getting older and older. There is not a single moment that we do not get old, that we stop getting old. And we cannot escape this process of aging. Now, we all understand this as we are getting older now. We do not want to get older, but we do get older second by second. So this can cause unhappiness. So therefore, aging is also a basis or a ground for suffering. Then death is suffering. I think this is not difficult to understand. And in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, sickness is also mentioned. Vyadi is also suffering. But here in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, this sickness is not included in this section. It's not mentioned because depending on the audience, the Buddha gave explanation sometimes in brief or sometimes in details. But we can understand that sickness is definitely also suffering, right? We have experience of this. And then the Buddha continued with sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Sokha parideva dukkha domana supasaya pi dukkha. All these are suffering. Later, we will go into detail of each one of them. We all experience them in our lives in different situations, and we know them with our own experience that, yes, true, this is suffering, right? So no one can deny that this is suffering. And then the Buddha continued with associating with dislike is also suffering. So when we have to see something we don't want to see, that is suffering. When we want to hear about something we don't want to hear, that's suffering. When we have to live with people or deal with people that we dislike or that are disagreeable with us, and that is definitely suffering. Or separation from the loved, separation from either people or even things, whether through death or through temporarily separation, that is also suffering. And then it is also mentioned that not to get what is wanted is also suffering. Now, what does it mean by not getting what is wanted? Does it mean like we want to win lottery, or we want to get a new car, or we want to buy a new house and we like someone, we want them to like us back? Does it mean that? Well, almost most of the time, most of the people are constantly wishing for what we do not have. So frustration and suffering in the mind is constant. But sometimes, even if we get what we want, suffering also is there. Even if we get a new house, a new car, then sooner or later it gets old and it gets worn out, or we are afraid that somebody will come and steal our car or will do something to our house. Or so whatever we have, even acquiring what we have is also suffering. But here, not getting what is wanted means also deeper. So it is actually meaning not getting what cannot be obtained. What is what cannot be obtained? For example, we don't want to get sick, but we do get sick. We don't want to get old, but we get old. We don't want to die, but we die. So not getting what is unobtainable is suffering. So the Buddha meant deeper than only material things. Then the Buddha continued, in short, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering, are dukkha. Now, the 5 aggregates of clinging, as we have seen in previous section, it means everything in the world, animated as well as inanimated. So all beings and all things that can become the object of clinging, craving, and wrong view, those are the 5 aggregates of clinging, right? Or mind and matter. So all these 5 aggregates are dukkha here, the Buddha said. Now, usually we understand dukkha, this word, as pain or suffering. But what is meant here, dukkha, is actually deeper than that. When we really understand how the 5 aggregates, how everything is unsatisfactory, how everything is dukkha, then we can say that we understand the first noble truth. Now, earlier in the discourse, we talked about 3 kinds of dukkha. Let's take a look at that. The first type of dukkha is called dukkha, which is sometimes translated as intrinsic suffering. So this includes physical pain and mental pain, which is the usual or the popular sense of the word dukkha, no? Suffering. And then the second type of dukkha is called viparinama dukkha, suffering based on change. Now, this suffering refers to pleasant physical or mental feeling, or everything that we think that it is good. For example, when we are healthy, or we go to a holiday, we're enjoying something we like, or we're buying a new house, whatever it may be. This is included in this kind of dukkha, because when they change, when this thing goes away, they cause sorrow and suffering. So when we are healthy, we think we are happy, but we cannot stay healthy forever and all the time. So when the situation changes, then there is sorrow, there is suffering. So according to this explanation, even pleasant things, pleasant feelings, even physical or mental, are also included in dukkha. So that's the second type. And the third type is called sankhara dukkha. Now, this sankhara dukkha arises because of formation. It's called sankhara, is translated as formation, right? So formation here means that they are produced or caused by other things. So everything in the world is caused and conditioned by other things. So sankhara dukkha constitute actually everything in the world. Mind and matter never stop. It is constantly arising and ceasing due to its causes and conditions. So whatever is impermanent will also be dukkha. At no moment in our lives are we free from this kind of dukkha. So this is called the sankhara dukkha. In the Dhammapada, verse 278, the Buddha said, Sabe sankhara dukkhati. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. And here, the Buddha is referring to this kind of sankhara dukkha because things are conditioned. Therefore, it is unsatisfactory. So the word dukkha is wider than just pain or suffering, how we understand with the English word. It is very difficult to translate in order to cover the whole meaning. So usually we just leave it as dukkha. But as you can see, it includes everything that has a beginning and an end. Everything that is impermanent, everything that is conditioned is dukkha. So this is the meaning here of the first noble truth when the Buddha said the noble truth of suffering, noble truth of dukkha. Now, by proclaiming the first noble truth, the Buddha showed the world's reality, the fact of life, which is dukkha itself. Many people think that this is pessimism, but actually it is not pessimistic to say that everything is dukkha, because everything really is dukkha. Everything is conditioned, everything is unsatisfactory in that sense, because it is not permanent. It cannot stay forever. It cannot give us any satisfaction or any happiness that lasts. So, for example, if we go to a doctor and then the doctor after an examination and tell us that, oh, this patient, you have this and this kind of disease, then we cannot say that the doctor is pessimistic by telling us that we have a disease, right? So in reality, if we do not know that we have a disease, we cannot make a plan for treatment or for cure, no? And also, the Buddha, he did not just only point out the first noble truth of suffering. He did not say that, oh, everything is suffering and that's it. But he also gave us hope by declaring that there is a cessation to this suffering. And also he pointed the way out. So there is a method, a practice of how to eradicate this suffering. So the Buddha's message with regard to the first noble truth cannot be said to be pessimistic, because he points out the disease and then he tells us that there is a cure. We can come out from this suffering. And he also gave the method, the medicine. So it can be said, instead of pessimistic, we can say that it is actually realistic, right? Okay, so let's go back to the sutta and continue and see what does the Buddha say. Now he will go to describe and explain each term. What does he mean by that? Katamecha bhikkhave jati. What now is birth? Ya tesam satanam tamhi satanikaye. The birth of beings belonging to this or that order of beings. Jati, their being born. Sanjati, their origination. Okanti, their conception. Abhinibhati, their springing into existence. Khandanam patubhavo, the manifestation of the aggregates. Ayatanam patilabho, the acquisition of sense bases. Ayam muchati bhikkhave jati. This bhikkhu is called birth. Now here, the birth of beings belonging to this or that orders, order of beings, that means the birth of beings into the human realm, into the celestial realm, and into the different planes of existence, planes or realm of existence. So I think last week we talked about that there are 31 planes of existence. So this belonging to this or that order, that means being born into the different realms. So all beings, into different realms. And here, the being born, origination, and conception, all this is actually, in a sense, synonym words. The Buddha explained it in many different ways, so that people, if they didn't get the first, then maybe the second word or the third word will hit them. So the Buddha explained in many different words referring to the same thing, referring to jati, referring to birth here. To spring it into existence. Now, the manifestation of the aggregates means the arising of the aggregate at the moment of rebirth. And the acquisition of the sense basis also means the arising of the sense basis at that moment, at the rebirth moment. So actually, all this just means birth. Then we continue, and then the Buddha explained about the next word that he referred to as suffering, which is jara, aging. So what is this aging? The aging of beings belonging to this or that order of beings, again, so in whatever realm that they are born into, their old age, discrepitude, breaking of teeth, grayness of hair, wrinkling of skin, the failing of their vital force, the wearing out of their sense faculties. This bhikkhu is called aging. Now, in the commentaries, it is said that aging cannot be seen by the eyes, except aging itself. This process cannot be seen. What we see is the result of aging, like the breaking of the teeth, the grayness of the hair, wrinkling of the skin, the failing of vital forces, and the wearing out of our sense faculties. So from this result of aging, we infer to the cause. Why this happened? Because of aging. So aging here is described by recognizing its result. So aging is also suffering. Then the Buddha described death here. And what bhikkhu is death? The departing and vanishing of beings out of this or that order of beings. So being born into different realms or planes, and then the being vanished from that realm. It's also called death, their destruction or disappearance, dying, which is called death, the actions of coming to an end, the dissolution of the aggregates, so no more of these 5 aggregates for that lifetime, the discarding of the body, the destruction of the faculty to control the vital forces. This bhikkhu is called death. Now again, when the Buddha described or explained about that here, he used many examples, many synonyms. So the listener who did not understand, for example, like, what do you mean by disappearance or something, then maybe he will understand the action of coming to an end or the dissolution of the aggregates, right? So all of this are just description of the word death, marana. What does he mean by marana? Okay, so let's go to the next one. Katamocha bhikkhu soko. And what bhikkhu is sorrow? The sorrow of one afflicted by this or that loss, touched by this or that painful thing, the sorrowing, the sorrowful state of mind, the inner sorrow, the inner deep sorrow. This bhikkhu is called sorrow. So here, sorrow means an unpleasant mental feeling associated with 2 kinds of consciousness that is accompanied by dosa, aversion. We are not happy with the situation. We are having aversion towards something. So sorrow arises. Now here it says, this or that loss, biasana. What does that mean? According to another sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, book 5, paragraph 133, it describes 5 kinds of lost, biasana. The first one is called nyati biasana, the loss of relatives. So we can understand that can bring sorrow. Bhoga biasana, loss of wealth. Droga biasana, loss of health. And then sila biasana, loss of virtue or moral conduct. And ditthi biasana, loss of right view. So here 5 types of loss are explained. The first 3 basically cannot be avoided, right? So loss of relatives, loss of wealth, sometimes it happens. Loss of health, definitely. but these are more worldly things. And for the fourth and the fifth, the loss of sila, loss of our moral conduct or our virtue, and the loss of right view, ditthi, these are said to be more important and more serious, because not losing these last two, sila and ditthi, it does not affect only this lifetime. It affects many, many lifetimes. We will suffer for many lifetimes throughout samsara. So therefore, it is important that we try not to lose our moral conduct sila and also ditthi, right view. Yes, Edith?
In what way is possible loss of right view? Because if someone really has right view, they won't lose it.
Only a Sotapanna has a very established right view that can never be broken. All of those persons that had not yet arrived to that stage or that understanding, even at the moment, I think I am understanding karma, I think I'm understanding the Dhamma, but at some point, this can fall, that this can be lost also. If we do not continue practice, if we do not keep up the wisdom, it can be lost.
I just wish you could give me an example for, let's say, somebody's not yet enlightened, they have the right view and they lose it. Like, just just
Yeah,
one example.
modern example, there are monks that they have been ordained for many years, and they have been practicing the Dhamma. And at some point that they decided to disrupt, and then they become a Christian. And so it can happen because the right view and the confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha is not unshakable yet. So we don't know what happened in the mind of the person or what situation, but it can fall down. Also, in other texts, in other suttas, it is said that the sada, the faith or confidence of putujana, of those who are not enlightened, is like a flag standing on a pile of husk. You know, husk like the shell of the grain of rice. Like when you go to the field or the farm, then after harvest, then they harvest the rice and then they take out the husk and then they put like a pile, no? Like a pile of husk. So the sada or the confidence of a person who is not enlightened is like a flag that is standing on the husk. It can fall anytime, right? It is not stable. It's not stable. So for whatever reason, it's right view, it can fall because only in the first stage of enlightenment, the wrong view is totally eradicated. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So let's go back to the sutta. So after sorrow, then parideva is mentioned. Parideva. So what does it mean by lamentation here? The wail of one afflicted by this or that loss, touched by this or that painful feeling, lament, wailing, and lamenting. The state of wailing and lamentation, this bhikkhus is called lamentation. So sometimes when people are suffering a lot, then they cried out aloud and they're screaming, shouting, and sometimes hitting their own self. And so those kind of deep sadness or sorrow, it's called lamentation here. In Pali, parideva, parideva. Okay, then we continued the definition of dukkha here. And what? Because is pain. Although the same word is used, but this dukkha here refers to the bodily pain and bodily unpleasantness, the painful and unpleasant feeling resulting from body contact. This bhikkhu is called pain here. So this dukkha here is the more narrowed definition. So related to the body is called dukkha here. Okay, and then it continues with domanasam. So here, and what? Because is grief, the mental pain and mental unpleasantness. So chetasikam dukkam. Also about mental here, about the mental factors. Mano samvasaja dukam. Here it is the painful and unpleasant mental feeling resulting from mental contact. So it is about the mind. When we remember something, we think about something, or we react to a certain situation, those kind of mental pain is called grieved domanasam here. And then the definition of upayasa. So, and what bhikkhu is despair, the distress or despair of one afflicted by this or that loss, touched by this or that painful thing, despair, excessive despair, the state of being in despair, and the state of being in excessive despair, this bhikkhus is called despair. So we have to know, like it seems like it is repeating, but all these are just different way of describing or explaining about what is meant by despair. Now, according to the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, it explains the difference between sorrow, lamentation, and despair with an example. So it says that sorrow is like cooking oil in a pot over a slow fire. So it's kind of like boiling. And lamentation is like is boiling over the pot when the cooking over a quick fire. So that's lamentation. And despair is like what is remained in the pot after it has boiled over and then it is unable to do any more cooking. It's all burned up and it is all dried up. And that is kind of the state of despair. So these are the difference between these three words. So like a different deeper level of aversion or the sadness, right? Okay, so it continues here. And what because is suffering that is association with the dislike. So let's see what is described here. Herein, whatever undesirable, disagreeable, unpleasant objects that there are, visible, audible, odored, sapid, and tangible, or whatever they are, who are wishes of, first about things, no? Whatever association with the dislike, meaning that we get in touch with the objects, whether it is visible, audible, etc., of the senses that is undesirable, disagreeable, unpleasant. And then also whatever they are, who are wishes of loss, wishes of harm, wishes of discomfort, and wishes of unreleased from bonds. So those people who have negative wishes or bad wishes towards us, that which is being together with them. So being with this kind of people is called what is associated with the dislike. Coming together with them, fraternizing with them, and being mixed with them. So this bhikkhu is called suffering that is association with the dislike. So whether it is things or people, that is called the association with the dislike. Apiyehi sampayogo dukkho. And then the next one, which is the suffering that is separation from the like or from the loved. Herein, whatever desirable, agreeable, pleasant objects there are, visible, audible, odored, sapid, and tangible. So here is the opposite with the previous one. So being separated from whatever pleasant objects or those people who are wishes of our welfare, wishes of benefit, wishes of comfort, wishes of release from bond, our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, friends, colleagues, relatives, blood relations, those who are not together with them, those who do not come together with them, who do not fraternize with them, and are not mixed with them. So not being together with the people that we like, the people who are good to us, wishing for our benefits and welfare, that is called the suffering that is separation from the light. So this is quite easy to understand, I think. Then we continue. And what bhikkhus is not getting what one wishes. So we already talked about it a little bit earlier. That means in being subject to birth, a wish may arise, oh, that we were not subject to birth, or that no birth would come to us. But this indeed cannot be attained by mere wishing. This is not getting what one wishes. That is also suffering. So that means we are already born. We wished we were not born, but that is not possible, right? So not getting what is unobtainable, no? So that is also suffering. And it continues in the same way. In being subject to aging, or being subject to sickness, being subject to death, being subject to sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, and then we wish that may we not age, may we not get sick, may we not die, may we not have sorrow, lamentation, pain, and grief, and despair, and wishing that. But this indeed cannot be attained by mere wishing. This too is not getting what one wishes. That is also suffering. And the last one, and what because is, in brief, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. So what are the 5 aggregates of clinging? Those are the aggregate of clinging to material form, all kind of rupa, the aggregate of feeling, clinging to that, and clinging to the aggregate of perception, clinging to the aggregate of mental formation, so all the other 50 cetasikas, and then also clinging to the aggregate of consciousness. So all this that can be become object of clinging, craving, and wrong view. Those are called the 5 aggregates of clinging, right? So all these 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering because they are conditioned, because they are impermanent. So it says, idam vucchati bhikkhave dukkam ariya satcham. So this because is called the noble truth of suffering. So up to here, the Buddha has defined in details what does he mean by the noble truth of suffering. What is suffering? Well, let's take a 5-minute break here, and coming back, we'll go to the second noble truth. Okay? Welcome back, everyone. Okay. Okay, so far all good with the first noble truth? With dukkha? Yes? Okay, so let's go to the second. Okay? So let's see. Then the sutta continues, and here it says, Katamecha bhikkhave dukkha samudayam ariya satcham. And what, because, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering? So let's see what it says here. It is the craving which gives rise to further rebirths, and, bound up with pleasure and lust, finds ever fresh delight, now here, now there. That is the sensual craving, the craving for existence, and the craving for non-existence. So here is a definition of the second noble truth, the origin of suffering. This explanation also appears in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta in the first discourse. The Buddha's teaching is unique in a way because it points out that craving is the origin of suffering and the origin of life. So let's see, what does it mean here? Craving, which gives rise to further rebirth. Now, craving is actually a driving force. If we had no craving at all, we would not be reborn at all. When we desire, even in daily life, when we desire to go somewhere, let's say we want to go to India, then we will go there and arrive there because we had the desire to go there. When we have no desire to go there, we won't go and we won't arrive there. So in the same way, because we have craving for existence, because we want to exist, then this craving will cause rebirth. That is why it has been said that craving gives rise to new rebirth or further rebirths here. Now, even if we perform meritorious deeds, we do a lot of kusala, if it is motivated by craving for a better life, then that will still keep us in the cycle of rebirth, the cycle of samsara. Not just only doing unwholesome deeds will keep us here, even doing wholesome deeds will still keep us here. The only way out is wisdom, and to understand reality as it is in the deepest level, understanding this Four Noble Truths, understanding about anicca, dukkha, and anatta. That is the only way to come out from samsara. All right, so this is the first one. The first thing says craving, which gives rise to further rebirths. And then it says bound up with pleasure and lust. And the Pali word used here is Nandi Raga Sahagata. So let's take a look. Nandi means pleasure or enjoyment, and Raga means lust. Sahagata means with or comes to be identical with, and here translated as bound up with. So here craving, it says craving is bound up with pleasure and lust. So that means it is identical with pleasure and lust. So that's another definition of for craving, for the origin of suffering. And then it says, find ever fresh delight now here and now there. Now that means it takes fresh delight wherever beings are being reborn. When a being is born into any existence, the first active mental process that arises in the mind of that being is the mental process of an attachment to life, which is craving for existence. We all begin our lives with attachment. It may be like unbelievable, even for beings in the Wufo state, even if a being is born as an animal or is born in four lower realms, like how is that possible? That is a miserable life. But still, believe it or not, very first active moment, it is with attachment. Whatever kind of life it may be, beings want to exist. So that first moment is with attachment. We all start with attachment. So that is what it means by finds ever fresh delight. And now here, now here, now here, now here, now here, like that. So wherever beings are born, we attach to that kind of existence. Okay, so that refers to three kinds of craving, three kinds of tanha: sensual craving, the craving for existence, and the craving for non-existence. So we have three kinds of tanha here: kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vibhava tanha. So let's take a look at these three kinds of craving. Kama tanha, sensual craving, that's quite easy to understand. That means wanting to see something beautiful, wanting to hear something good, smell, taste, touch, or think about sensual pleasure, something, objects that gives us sensual pleasure. So that's kama tanha, craving or desire for sensual objects. Then how about bhava tanha, craving for existence? Now, according to the commentaries, there are four kinds of bhava tanha. The first one is craving for sense realm or sense sphere. So that means for those who are born in the sense sphere, human realm, and the lower deva realm, where we are attached to our life here, our existence here, and beings in the Wufo state also, the desire to be reborn into a good human state or to a Deva realm. That is also called the craving for existence. The first type, craving for existence in the sense sphere. Okay, then the second type of craving for existence is craving that arises together with eternalist view. And what does that mean? What kind of view? The view that takes beings and the world to be eternal, to exist forever. So there are some people that believe that there is inside being, there is a permanent entity, or sometimes called a self or a soul, that goes from one life to the other and purifying itself until it gets united with the greater universal, the greater self, or the Brahma, like that. So craving that is accompanied with this kind of belief, this kind of wrong view, is called craving for existence. Now, existence here means the eternal existence. So this kind of craving is accompanied by the wrong view, eternalist view. So that is the second type of craving for existence. And then we have a third type, which is the craving for or attachment to the Brahma existence. So Brahma existence here means the fine material Brahma and the non-material Brahma. These two kind of existence. So wanting or craving to be reborn there, or those beings that are already born there, attaching to their existence there. And the fourth one is attachment to jhanas. So that means when meditators reach the state of jhana, they get attached to this kind of jhana. So that is the fourth type of craving for existence. And then how about vibhava tanha? So craving for non-existence. This is craving that arises together with the annihilationist view. Well, there are some people who believe that there is this life only. Nothing arises after the end of this life. There is no rebirth. So beings are being annihilated at death. Such belief is called this annihilationist view. So craving accompanied with this wrong view that beings are annihilated at death is called craving for non-existence, vibhava tanha. So the origin of suffering, which is craving, and whatever kind of craving it may be, craving always leads to a new rebirth. As described earlier, it is simply pleasure and lust, and it finds delight in any kind of existence. This craving is the origin or the cause of suffering. Now, of course, there are other causes of suffering, such as ignorance and also clinging and other defilements also, no? But this craving, tanha, is singled out as the origin of suffering, as the second noble truth, because it is the specific cause of suffering. It causes suffering with the support of the other conditions also. Okay, now the Buddha gives us the basis of this craving in details. So it says, and where bhikkhus does this craving when arising arises, when settling settles. Whatever in the world is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing, therein this craving when arising arises and when settling settles. Now here it says, arises and settles, upajati and nivisati. What does that mean? Here we can understand arising, upajati, and settling, nivisati in two ways. The first way of understanding, the arising means the very first arising, and then the settling means repeated arising. Repeatedly arising again and again and again. So this craving, when it first arises, we call it upajati arises. And when it continues to arise again and again and again, then we call it settled, nivisati. So this is the first way of understanding it. And there is a second way to understand it, according to the subcommentary. This arising also means the coming up in the mind. And the settling means to lie dormant or latent in the mind. Now, to understand this a little bit better, then we have to know the three kinds or the three levels or the three stages of defilements. Now, the first stage or first level of defilement is called anuseya, latent. So it refers to the potential of the arising of defilements. For example, at this moment, we are not angry with anyone, we are not craving for anything. But if there is some kind of provocation, we may get angry, or if there is some kind of temptation, then craving may arise. There is still the potential for us to get angry or have craving because we have not get rid of it from the root. So at this moment, although it is absent in the mind, it is still potential for those defilements to arise. So those are called anuseya, those defilements that are latent, that are dormant. That's the first level. And then when there is the cause and condition, then dosa or lobha, craving or aversion may arise in the mind. It can surface, no? So formally, in the anuseya stage, it is not existent in the mind at all. But Now, depending on the situation, because something happened, then this dosa or this loba arised in the mind. And this is called the arising stage, which is called pariyutthana. And then there is a third stage or third level of defilement, and that is called the acting out or the transgression. Because of this anger or this craving that has arisen in the mind, we may, let's say, quarrel with somebody, we may hit somebody or even kill somebody, or we may steal something or take something that do not belong to us because of that craving that arose in the mind. So acting it out, this is called the third stage, vitikama. And this is the grossest stage of defilements. So defilements here, they will have three levels. Latent, anusaya, pariyutthana, that those that are already arose in the mind, and vitikama, acting it out. No? So here in this paragraph or in this phrase here, it says that arise and settles. We can understand here, depending on this desirable object, this craving arises and repeats itself again and again. And that will be the pariyutthana arising. By settling, the first stage of this latent stage is meant. So if we understand in the second way of explanation, arising means the pariyutthana, arising in the mind level here. And settles means the latent level, the settling stage. Okay, so whatever in the world is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing, therein this craving arises and settles, right? And what are these delightful things or pleasurable things? So the sutta continues and it says, and what in the world is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing? This I in the world is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing. Therein, this craving, when arising, arises, and when settling, settles. Then it continues to say, ear in the world, nose, tongue, body, and the mind is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing. Therein, this craving, when arising, arises, and when settling, settles. Now, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind can be delightful. Do we like our eyes? Do we like our nose? Do we? Do we worry when something happens to our eyes or something happens to our ears? Now, during COVID, some people lost their sense of smell and taste, no? So we are so used to our senses that sometimes we may not realize that we actually have attachment towards them. But when something happened to them, we know how much attachment we actually have to our own senses. We like our eyes. We like to have we like to see beautiful things. We like our eyes. We like our nose to smell and all these senses, and the mind as well. So that's why it is said that these senses, the six senses itself, can be a delightful thing. Then we may be attached to them, and craving arises there and settles, meaning it arises again and again and again with regard to these six senses. That's the first group of delightful things. And the second group now, visible form in the world, sounds in the world, smells in the world, tastes in the world, tangible things in the world, and dhammas, meaning the other types of objects and the mind objects. Remember, we saw it in the previous session. In the world are delightful things, pleasurable things. Therein, this craving arises. This craving, when arising, arises, and when settling, settles. So when we are attached to the objects, the sense objects and the mind objects, this craving arises, and it arises again and again and again. So here now, these objects, the six types of objects taken by the six senses, are also delightful things which we can attach to. Then it continues. Eye consciousness in the world, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness in the world is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing. Therein, this craving, when arising, arises, when settling, settles. We are attached to different kinds of consciousness. So we like to, when we see something, eye consciousness arises. When we hear something, ear consciousness arises, etc. And when we think about things like, or when we have reaction towards different situations, those are all kinds of consciousness are arising, and we are attached to this kind of consciousness. We think that they are delightful and pleasurable. And then it continues. It says eye contact in the world, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact in the world is a delightful thing, a pleasurable thing. So here that means eye contact, meaning the mental contact that arises when a visible object, the eye, physical eye, and the eye consciousness, when they come together, this contact arises, right? Fasana is one of the mental factors. When we get attached to getting in contact with objects, we think it is pleasurable to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, and to think, and so on. So this contact itself can be delightful when we attach to it. And then depending on this contact, a feeling will arise, right? So the feeling born of eye contact, when we see something, we have a mental feeling. Then when we hear something, because of ear contact, the feeling born of nose contact, the feeling born of tongue contact, feeling born of body contact, feeling born of mind contact are also delightful things and pleasurable things. Therein, craving arises again and again. We can attach to the feelings that arises because of those contact. And then it continues to say the perception of visible form, perception of sound, smell, taste, tangible object, and also the dhammas, meaning the mind objects or the other kinds of objects, are also delightful things, pleasurable things that with regard to them, craving arises again and again. Also, not just only perception, but the volition concerning these objects also. The volition concerning visible forms, sound, smell, taste, tangible things, and the mind objects, dhammas also, they are also delightful things. Here, volition is that which wills, the volition of doing something is also a mental factor. This craving arises on this volition again and again. And then what else? The thought of visible forms, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. So thinking about them are also delightful. And in terms of Abhidhamma or in ultimate reality, this thought refers to vitakka cetasika, initial application, usually translated as. And then the next one is related, vicharo, the discursive thought, translated as discursive thought. In ultimate reality, it is sustained application, the name of this mental factor. So again, so vitaka and vichara, initial application and sustained application. So we think about the thoughts about these visible forms, about the sound, about all the objects itself, are also a delightful thing, pleasurable thing. Regarding that, craving arises again and again. Now, the difference between vitaka and vichara is explained in the Visuddhimagga. So vitaka is like the first impact of the mind, in the sense that it is both, it is kind of gross and inceptive. Like it is compared to like the striking of the bell, the striking of it, the touching of it. And then vichara, which is the sustained application, so here discursive thought translated as, is like the act of keeping the mind anchored, in the sense that it is subtle and with individual essence of continued pressure. So sticking the mind there. So it is compared to the ringing of the bell. So the striking and the ringing. So they arise together. No, when you strike, then the bells sound. No? And so the striking is like initial application, and the sounding, that sounding of it is like the vichara, it's like the sustained application. So all these factors that we have mentioned are delightful objects. They are objects of craving. Then craving arises and settles depending on them or with regard to them. So as a little recap, because we have gone through quite quickly, let's take a look of what were those things that we saw. So we saw firstly eye, etc. So meaning all the six senses. So I just used the example of eye, but we understand that it means eye and ear and nose and tongue and everything, the six senses all together. And then we have seen visible forms, the object of what the eye sees, no? Then eye consciousness, eye contact, the feeling born of eye contact, perception of visible form, volition concerning the visible form, the thought for visible forms, and the discursive thought for visible form. So all these are mentioned as that are delightful, pleasurable, that craving arises and repeats itself. So what are eye and visible form? In ultimate reality, they are rupa, no? They are rupa. Then how about these ones? Consciousness, contact, feeling, perception, volition, vitaka, vichara, they're all mental factors. So it's actually chitta and cetasikas here. So all that are mentioned here, we can actually group them into rupa and chitta and cetasika. So that means all kinds of mind and matter, or in other words, the five aggregates of clinging, are delightful things, are pleasurable things that craving arises and repeat itself again and again and again. So here, the craving, the tanha that arises and get attached to the five aggregates of clinging, that which produce new life, is what is meant by the second noble truth here, the cause or the origin of suffering, the dukkha, samudaya, ariya, sacca. Okay, so up to here, the Buddha gave the detailed explanation of what he meant by the second noble truth. Any question? Yes, Judy?
Am I correct to say that by default, there's craving? When there is contact, that's mean all the five sense door is all craving by default. Meaning the first moment that is when we open our eyes, right? I mean, that's the only thing I can quote an example, because the rest are like happening. I can't close. Okay, so the eyes when I open, it is already craving happening.
Because craving arises and then it arises, repeat itself again and again and again. So it has a very strong momentum. We may say, like, by default, it's already, we usually react to it in that way. But we cannot say that it must be that way, because if it must be that way, there is no way out.
Exactly. Right? That's where I'm getting to.
Yes. So we cannot say it by default. We can only say that habitually, for those untrained mind, that usually craving is the first thing to arise. But for the person who are practicing, who are being mindful, then not necessarily. When we see something, then not necessarily that craving arises. Maybe wisdom can arise. When we see something, maybe an understanding will arise. Oh, this seeing, what is actually seeing is only eye and visible object and eye consciousness then coming together in contact, and because of this, then this is arising. No, so if we understand, then there is no craving at that moment. There is understanding, there is wisdom. So not necessarily it must be craving. But for a person who are not practicing, who are not trying, who are untrained, or for a person that are not enlightened, then a lot of times craving is the first thing to arise. But for example, for an arahat, a totally enlightened being, surely for them it is not, because no craving will arise in them.
So for us, who are going through the progressive training, right? The gradual training. So am I correct to say that not so well trained yet, when I open my eyes, see something pleasurable, but because of this training, it get, what word should I use? There's understanding that it's just an eye consciousness happening. So that is where, that's mean the first moment there's already an attachment, a craving to it, and then it is the working of the next moment. I mean, for descriptions, for descriptive discussion purposes. So when the attitude is right, it's have more right informations and skillful to see it correctly. That's where the next moment it shift and gradually,
Yes, that
detach
is
from
the
it.
practice, no? So when we have the information, when we are practicing, we cannot stop it from arising because we have not cut off the root yet. So it arises because there are conditions and it arises. But if we are mindful, if we know it, then the duration may be shorter or the seriousness will be shorter. So maybe the craving, oh, it arises, but we do not let it grow so big. Right, because we have mindfulness, because we have understanding, and so hopefully when we grow the wisdom bigger and bigger, then the craving arises less and less, and eventually we can cut it from the root.
Okay. And my last question is Chitta, where you say that it is a grouping of Rupa and Nama, which is Chitta and Chitta Sekkas. If I understood correctly, right, whatever the fews mental factors that you have mentioned earlier, they are generally the universal mental factors and some of the occasional mental factors. So, which is something like contact, feelings, perceptions, the volitions, and the discursive thoughts and thoughts, right? So, just a few that is being mentioned, and how come not the rest? Because there are 52 mental factors, but then it has been grouped as the all mental factors, which is the Cetasikas together with Chitta.
Yeah. Now here, because the Buddha explained always according to the audience, right? So especially in suttas, when the Buddha explained the Mahasatipatthana Sutta to the Kuru people, for the Kuru people, with this, they understand that means mind and matter. Yeah, with these factors, they do not need to have a detailed like Abhidhamma explanation of all the 52 Cetasikas, but by mentioning these main points, they understand that, oh, that is Rupa and that is Chitta. And also with that, the Buddha, that is enough for them. No, sometimes for other people, maybe 5 aggregates is enough. So maybe this Vitaka Vichara is not being mentioned even. Right? So sometimes only perception, feeling, and consciousness, and also the other sankhara, mean what the other mental factors also. So depending on the audience, but we understand whatever it may be in different suttas, we understand that it must be nama and rupa. No, we must understand both in order for it to be a vipassana practice.
Okay, sorry. One more question. Can you move back to the earlier slides about the 3 levels or 3 different defilements? Yeah. The first one, latent. No, the second one, arising in the mind. That is where the contact has already happened, at the contact with the mind. So latent, is it already a contact when it arises?
Now, latent is the potential. So latent meaning at this moment, you are not angry. No, at this moment, I suppose. Now, so
Yeah.
you're not angry, but that does not mean that you will never get angry, right? So there is a potential for you to get angry, not at this moment. So that means in the mind, at this moment, there is no dosa in your mind. But if something happened, if somebody come or shout at you or do something, then there is a possibility that dosa may arise, right? So if that really happened and that dosa arise, then that will be pariyutthana, that will be aroused in the mind already, right? When it really happens. So that is in the mind. But anuseya, it's only the potential. That means at this moment, it is not there. But there is still potentiality for it to arise anytime.
But based on understandings, right, there's a lot of potentials then. It could be this, it could be, greed or even like aversions you mentioned.
Yes.
It can be so many other potentials, right? So in short of saying, as long as it's not contact to the mind, because we are learning, I'm only can take care of this mind, right? So even if there's so many potentials outside, do I need to even worry as long as it's not? You get what I'm trying to
Oh,
say?
you don't have to worry about it because there is nothing that we can do about it. It is just a potential that exists in all of us because there is because we have not uprooted the possibility of its arising. No, so therefore, well, we don't have to worry about it because we cannot do anything about it. So when it arises, then we deal with it. But we know that there is still potential for it to arise, right? So what we need to do is we try to develop wisdom, which wisdom is the thing that will cut off the potential for it to ever arise. So what we need to do is develop wisdom, not worried about the potential.
Okay. I mean, now that it explains, right, it get connected to this understanding that is just information for us to understand any potentials is possible out there. For as long as the mind is not trained or not skillful, you will just get hit, in any directions as long as there's a condition for it.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Okay, yes, Zenan?
Yes, Heidi. Just now, the second slide from this, there is a lot of factors the craving can crave to. So, for example, you mentioned six sense, six sense door, and then the object, and also the feeling. Normally, these
This
few
one?
factors are more easy to be understood. How like for example, present feelings, because we are craving for the present, and I just not quite understand why it will crave to the contact, because the contact is some kind of reactions, you know, sense of with the object, then there is a contact, and then it will follow with the feeling. Then feeling got present, unpleasant, neutral. So contact is just something like very neutral. How will it attach to?
How do we attach to contact?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
do you ever wish to see something nice?
Yes.
Yes. So that wishing or that attachment or that craving for seeing something. What is seeing something? Seeing something is the eye getting in contact with the visible object. So we crave for that contact. We crave for seeing something because seeing it arise all together here. No, what is seeing? Seeing is getting in contact with the visible form, right?
Okay. So it's the whole package.
Yes, the whole package, mind and matter.
Because my understanding previously is the visible form of object is not the reaction. Actually, it's package lah that we create for the whole package to happen. Enable to happen, then it should be the whole package lah.
Well, it depends because, of course, we can be attached either to the visible form itself, no? So that is rupa, that is not the mind. But if we are attached to the seeing itself, then it is attaching to the mind. That is chitta and cetasika, right? Because what sees? The mind sees, yeah? Eye consciousness, together with the feeling and perception and everything, all this, let's say this package, as you said, then this is different. Then this is different because if we are attached to the seeing itself, then it is attaching to the mind, attaching to eye consciousness. No, but if we are attaching to what we are looking at, then that is attachment to the object, no, the rupa. So that may be different, but yeah.
Any example for attached to intention?
Intention.
So just there is the volition concerning visible forms, mean there is a intention to wish to look at certain thing. So that
Yes.
is kind of intention, something like.
Yeah, something like that. Yes. Yes, well, volition is always there. We always want to do this and that, no? When we want to cook something, when we want to eat something, we want to see something, we want to hear something, there's always an intention. Even we are sitting for a long time and we are feeling tired of sitting, we want to stand up, that's also volition there.
During some practice, some master help guide us to see, how can we see the craving. So sometimes we have this thought, like just now you mentioned, we want to do something. So there is a kind of thought or statement. So sometimes we can catch this kind of thought, and then there is a motivated by craving. So we cannot see exactly the craving. We can see the thought, but this thought behind that, there is a craving. Motivate by that, is it?
Right. We can see the thought, we can see that there is this kind of idea that we want to do something. So as you said, it is important to identify who is behind this thought, no? Because sometimes wisdom can also want to do something. For example, who want to practice? No, wisdom want to practice, right? So not all the time it is craving. So we have to identify who is behind this wanting. So sometimes it is craving, sometimes it may be wisdom, sometimes it may be aversion, it can be different, it can be defilement, or it can be wholesome thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, welcome. So today we have looked at the first noble truth and the second noble truth, which is the noble truth of dukkha and the origin of dukkha, which is craving. No? So next week we are going to look at the cessation of dukkha and the fourth noble truth, the path, or the way or the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. And with that, we'll basically complete the whole Mahasatipatthana Sutta. All right. So all good today? No question at all? Yeah? All right. Okay. So in this case, we will close and let's recite together. We will dedicate our effort for the attainment of Nibbana, and also we share merits with all beings. So let's recite together. Itam no punyam Nibbanasa pachayo hotu. Itam no punyam Nibbanasa pachayo hotu. Itam no punyam Nibbanasa pachayo hotu. Itam no punyam sabhasatanam bhajima. Itam no punyam sabhasatanam bhajima. Itam no punyam sabhasatanam bhajima. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you for joining, everyone. I'll see you again next week.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Have a good